Coming to you live from deep within an icy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the social justice zombie apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy. Once more wading into battle against the zombie hordes with Rantzerker number 29. Fluffpo Femsplains. Oh, damn it. Fluffpo
Something or other.
Femsplains. Something or other, yeah.
Phlegmatic.
Yeah, something phlegmy.
Yeah, no, it was Fluffpo Femsplains. Anybody who can do a video of you saying that really, really fast, like 6 times in a row, and I will
Congratulate you?
Yeah. Yeah, I will publicly congratulate you.
Well, let me try it again.
I will tweet that video.
Yeah, let me try it again. Fluffpo Fluffpo Femsplains.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, all right. Let's get this started.
Okay, I guess I better screen share. La la la, entire screen.
Yep, put it in its own tab.
It doesn't need to be in its own tab. It just needs, I need to share it to everybody.
Okay, all right, then I need to give you the controls. Just a sec. All right, there you go.
Present to everyone. Oh, that's always lovely, that little thing. See here? It's full screen now.
All right, great. Okay, let's do this thing that we are doing now.
Okay. All right. This guy looks like he's scared, like he's being held against his will. He's wondering if he's going to be waterboarded soon.
That's not funny. That's not funny. I should have laughed, but I did.
No, it just caught him in that perfect expression of sort of staring into the abyss and being quietly horrified.
And possibly the abyss staring back.
There you go. All right. Moving on. Okay. First thing, the original title of the video about the 48 things women hear in a lifetime that men just don't. Right? But this one, this one is 48 things men hear in a lifetime that harm women too, is essentially what they're saying, that are bad for everyone.
Yeah, well, women have it worse.
The primary victims of their own problems, right?
No,
not their own deaths or their own rapes or their own abusive partnerships or their own suicides. They can't be the primary victims of that. Think about all of those women who self-harmed and were treated at the hospital. They're suicide victims. They're the primary victims because there's more of them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're very right. The original movie, is this a movie? What is this?
I don't even find
it's short.
Propaganda. Yeah, it's a short piece of propaganda.
Okay, so this propaganda short, the original was 48 things women hear in a lifetime that men just don't, or some shit, as Karen was pointing out. So we can't even look at the situation for men without trying to make it out that women are also victims. I mean, you can't even just look at. It's almost like they're scared of something. They're scared of looking directly into the abyss. But we can, and we will.
Yeah. We absolutely will.
All right, let's look into that abyss.
Moving on. Is this the same music?
Probably.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, does it matter?
Well, it kind of does if they made if it was more sad music for the women. I mean, they do shit like that. I'll have to go back and check. If anybody who's watching right now wants to check on that and see if it's the same music or different music, just mention it in the chat, and Alison will keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll try. Just mention it multiple times until I mention it on the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell us the difference between this music and the music in the previous propaganda.
Well, because all of this sort of bombastic piano, this really highly emotive piano stuff, it just all sounds the same to me. But it just feels like this one has a slightly different feel to it. But maybe that's just me. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll find out for sure. I'm sure that somebody will do this, and I'll take a look at the chat. If I don't mention it initially, just repeat the answer if the music is different, and I will mention it. But let's
perfect.
Boys don't play with dolls.
Yes, they do.
No, they're called G.I. Joe.
Yeah, or like stuffed monkeys, or like Hobbs the tiger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, boys play with dolls. They just aren't necessarily babies.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily play with baby dolls or dress-up dolls or fashion dolls.
And how does restricting boys' choices hurt girls in this instance?
Well, I don't think that it does. Girls definitely have much more leeway as far as playing with toys than boys do. Boys actually will get sort of looked at, get the stank eye, for playing with a very, very traditionally female toy.
Mm-hmm.
Way more than a girl will get the stink eye for, playing with Lego or Meccano. Do they still have Meccano? They had that when I was a kid.
I don't remember. I think I vaguely recall Meccano.
Meccano was like metal, and it was sort of like girders and pieces that they had the screw holes all at an interval. I
remember playing with something that had electricity through it.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty cool. Like you had batteries, and you could make these. You could essentially make things that like mobile cars and other stuff. I usually made like rovers to land on other planets, but why don't I want to do a challenge for today. Let's try to get this under an hour.
Okay.
So do 20 seconds and then stop.
I want to tackle each of these individually.
I know, but take notes. Take notes.
No, I can't do that.
Pink is a girl's color. Boys
No, it's not.
don't cry. Wow, you're so strong.
Okay.
What the fuck? Okay, pink is a girl's color. Boys don't cry, and wow, you're so strong. How do those things hurt women? The fact that girls can also wear pink as well as blue, as well as any color of the rainbow.
Yeah.
How does that fucking hurt women?
Yeah.
Boys don't cry. Was it boys don't cry?
Yeah, boys don't cry.
Well, yeah. Well, that allows women the space for them to cry. It is a bit of a zero-sum game when it comes to vulnerability. If one gender is expected not to cry, that allows the space for the other gender to not only cry when it's legitimate, when they have some legitimate concern, but also cry just because they want to manipulate people to do shit.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the foundation for why feminism exists in the first place, because boys don't cry, drink male tears. You guys, come on, just admit that this is what you want.
Yeah, I know. And that's not even going into like the physiological aspects of crying, right? That actually make people with more testosterone less likely to cry. And then when boys go through puberty, when girls go through puberty and become adult women, their tear glands and ducts remain exactly like they were when they were children. Same size, same shape, same amount of productivity, same function, everything, right? And for boys, for boys, when they become men, their tear ducts and their tear glands change to actually inhibit crying. So they have like essentially this idea that boys don't cry is 100% a social construct is completely bogus. It's partly biological as well. It's an expectation because it has been observed that men are less likely to cry than women.
Well, okay, and I'm going to bring in the sociological aspect.
Yep.
You realize, Huffpo, that the same dynamic that had you not be able to directly stare at the pain of men, you had to contextualize it somehow by passing it off as really women's pain is the same dynamic that tells boys don't cry. Because
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm being really loud right now. I'm letting my fucking idiot dog out because she's right now.
oh my God, that is a lot of that. Okay, so I mean, the idea that you can't fully allow boys to be vulnerable is the same thing that caused Huffpo to have to put at the bottom of this that are bad for everyone. Not bad for men, not bad for boys, but bad for everyone. That's the same fucking dynamic.
Yeah.
It's like recursion of. It's like some sort of inception. Like in the. Okay.
No, they can't let men have any kind of suffering that's just for them. You know, that's just like, it's just this man is suffering.
Because he's a man.
And that's because he's a man, and that's the end of the story. You know, or that's the end of the exposition phase of the story. And now we go into the phase of the story where we actually try and help him. And maybe feel better.
Essentially, boys don't cry. Boys don't be vulnerable because your role is stoic and you are less of a victim than women. And Huffpo is... Oh, you know what? We could go on for that. Let's. I really want to get this done in an hour.
All right.
You got hit by a girl?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And she didn't get into any trouble for it. Isn't that interesting? But you couldn't hit her back because then you'd be a cowardly piece of shit.
Usually that's
who are smaller and weaker than him, and you'd be the one in trouble.
Okay. Usually that's also prefaced by, what did you do to deserve it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and how does this hurt girls?
Well, I guess because girls never learn how to take a fucking shot to the chops, and they grow up feeling like that they're made out of glass. No, and I know that they don't think that would actually, potentially cause a harm or a stunting of the development of girls, right? And sort of stunt their ability to embrace the entirety of their humanity. But personally, I think that sheltering girls from, allowing girls to walk around smacking boys whenever they feel like it, and knowing that they're never going to get hit back and they're probably not going to be punished for it, I think that actually does an act of harm to girls. I just know that that's not what Huffpo is getting at here.
Well, I'm not even sure.
They're going to say this attitude hurts girls because it assumes that they're too weak to actually do any harm to a boy that they hit, and therefore it's relying on this stereotype of women as weak, right? And that harms women. That's the entire basis of their assumption that this sort of thing, this norm, hurts everybody, including girls.
I just know that we're going to answer that. Like, okay, let's try to get through another 20 seconds.
Okay. Another 20 seconds? We're only at 19 seconds.
I know.
Well, like a girl.
What are you, gay? Don't be such a pussy. You don't watch football? You're such a mama's boy.
Why are all of these men lisping? All of them.
Maybe to illustrate the point? I don't know.
Like, could they only get
people who can't pronounce the word S or the letter S?
No, like kind of wristy guys to actually do this? Like at this age of being teens and early 20s, they could, the only guys that they couldn't find a masculine guy to talk about this. They couldn't find sort of a non-metrosexual sports watching guy, the stereotypical guy, right? Who has forced himself to live up to, maybe he naturally does, maybe he has to force himself to live up to these expectations, right? These are all guys who are like, these are guys who seem to be just fine going on camera being
I see what you're getting at.
Other than what they're saying they're told to be.
Yeah, like, okay, You're a bunch of guys who obviously defy the stereotypes you're complaining about.
Yeah.
Well, you're there, you're doing your thing. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Why not use someone who's actually maybe struggling with that?
Yeah.
Or it's just
Or has like actually capitulated, just decided that he's going to conform to that.
So an actual victim, in other words. Well, but you see that they don't want to actually show men as victims.
No.
They want to show how men having issues or problems really is issues and problems for women.
Yeah.
Or somehow we don't have to like recognize that these are solely issues that men face, but somehow we got to shoehorn women into there somewhere because it's more comfortable. It's more comfortable to do that.
Well, because, you throw like a girl is based on misogyny because we devalue femininity. No. Women don't have to. Girls don't have to know how to throw to be valued.
Yeah.
Boys do.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, you took one gender and you say, you got to do X, Y, Z. You got to make yourself valuable by having a skill. And good gosh darn it, they have skills. And then they turn around and they say the gender that doesn't have to have skills to be valuable, it's valuable simply by going through puberty. They turn around and say, well, that gender who doesn't have to develop any skills, you have the skills of that gender. And everybody's like, oh my God, you didn't make it as, well, fuck, obviously.
Yeah.
If you take two groups of people and say you only have value if you develop skill, and the other group, oh, you just have value just because. Of course, the second group is not only going to use you having the skills of the first group as an insult. They're also going to use it as a way to relieve the fact that they're being, there's a serious double standard there. And it's not in favor of the group that is expected to have skills in order to earn value. It's in favor of the group that doesn't. Because if you look throughout all of history, the group that doesn't necessarily have to have skills to earn a sense of place in society, who have they been?
Yeah.
They have been aristocracy, usually female aristocracy, because at least the male aristocracy had to be able to fight. They have been, in every single case, the group of people who does not have to earn their place through having skills has been what? The people who ruled society.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's fucking move on.
You're so scrawny. He can't even grow a beard. Are you more of an ass man or a boob man?
I don't think you're a boob man. I think you're probably an ass man.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry. I made a gay joke. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was watching Milo and Sargon drunk the other night, and now I'm feeling all weird. They almost kissed.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Everybody in the chat was going like, kiss now, kiss now. So.
All right, okay. Let's see. You can't grow a beard. Well, whatever.
A beard? Well, no, but I mean, a beard is stereotypically male. It's like sort of it's a thing that happens, right? That, you
Yeah, but how does this affect women? If a guy can't grow a beard and somebody says you can't grow a beard, is it, okay, let's look at the opposite situation. You're looking at a flat-chested woman and say, you can't grow breasts? Does that hurt men somehow?
Well, I'm sure if that man was like a boob man, he might.
Yeah, but no, but in the way that HuffPost is saying, telling a man that he can't grow a beard hurts women somehow. How does telling a woman she can't grow breasts hurt men?
Yeah, I know.
Fucking what? This does not support your premise, Huffpo. This piece of evidence has nothing to do with your fucking premise. You get an F. This is a bad essay.
Honestly, they should have just picked a proper title for it. They really should have. I mean, you can't grow a beard? Yeah, well, women don't tend to hear that. At least not in that sort of, you can't grow a beard?
And the other thing is that the only thing that they can say is really bad for women is policing the gender role and expecting women to behave like we expect aristocracy to behave.
Yeah.
The thing is that they can't even, because this is not what happens to men. The policing of men's gender role is not the worst thing that happens to them, unless part of the policing is, being beat up or shot or stoned.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happens to guys is the expectation that they adhere to a gender role that makes them put aside all of their vulnerabilities in order to serve another group of people in society, which incidentally was a role that isn't just shared by men, but certain classes of people that whose names or whose titles shall remain unspoken. I think you know what I'm talking about, Karen.
I think I probably do.
What classes of people throughout history were expected to put aside their own interests in order to serve other people?
Oh, what class throughout history was told you shouldn't speak to, you shouldn't actually go up to someone of another class and speak to them. You should speak when spoken to. Avoid eye contact. You don't look at your betters in the face. You look at the ground, right? And then you see the whole brouhaha about catcalling and stare rape and the male gaze and all of this and how it hurts women, right? That's men speaking before being spoken to
Or
their
casting
betters,
eyes on their betters.
and casting their filthy eyes on their social betters. That's all it is, right?
No, it's maintained now by this some sort of, I don't know, men have superpowers, super mental powers that strip away women's personhood by looking at them and shit like that, but or talking to them.
That's all just fucking gymnastics and just
To
invent,
justify.
like they're just like, they take the big fucking bin of macaroni, right? And they dump it all out over the floor, and they're like, oh, that one piece that fell that way, oh, we can use that as an excuse to justify this. Like, there's no, it's just whatever they can figure out that could possibly make any kind of sense in the most drug-addled brain out there, right, to justify why they're upset about something, because they will not admit why they're upset. Because if they admitted why they are upset about men who speak before being spoken to women on the street, men who look at women, men who sexualize women, and all of that, they would have to admit that they think men are scum who are unworthy of thinking of women in a sexual way, looking at women and appreciating the way they look, or so much as actually being the person to start a conversation. And this isn't a new thing. This isn't a feminist thing. I mean, gentlemen callers used to have to come around to the house and leave their card with the major domo or the butler, right? And ask permission to call on the young lady of the house, right?
I remember something from, I think it was, what was that cop show from like the 50s and 60s? It had that sort of interesting intro. Oh, God damn it. What is that freaking cop show? It was, God, words, no good. Why am I on a radio show when I can't speak English?
I don't know.
But anyway, so there was this scene. It was amazing to me to watch this scene where this cop approached a woman about a criminal issue.
Yeah.
He approached this woman about a criminal issue, and she said to him, with her nose up in the air, I don't have to talk to you. You may speak to my husband.
Yeah.
And then she walked on. She didn't have to talk to the cops.
Yeah.
He had to go through her husband before she would deign to talk to the fucking police. I'm like, Jesus fuck. And feminists look at that era and say women didn't have power.
Yeah.
She could just wave the police away. Oh no, I'm sorry, officer.
Yeah.
You may talk to my husband. You may not talk to me. You may talk to my husband.
Oh, you know what's fucking hilarious?
My representative.
You know what's hilarious? Is everybody's heard of Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41, right? Killed her father and stepmother, or was it mother and stepfather, right? She was 35 years old, living at home, being supported by her parents. I believe she was 35-ish, something like that, single, never married, but entitled to the support of her parents. And so she was living at home with them. Everybody thinks she killed them, okay? But I don't here's how it went down when the cops arrived at the house. She would not let them in. She claimed she was indisposed. She was in a state of disembowel. Right? She was, her modesty would not allow her to open the door, her feminine modesty. She was not in a state to receive callers. And the cops just stood outside for hours and allowed her to clean up the evidence because they could not barge in on an unmarried woman of respectable social rank when she said that she was not entirely dressed for company.
And this was a time where women were the dark ages of women's servitude, when they could literally say to the cops, no, I am not going to speak to you. You may speak to my representative. And it was Dragnet. It was Dragnet.
Jack?
Oh, wait. Are you needing to deal with something in your house there?
Sam, let the dog in.
Okay.
Sorry,
dog issues.
I misidentified the child who came upstairs briefly and then went back downstairs. He was actually walking quietly like his older brother instead of loudly like himself.
Misidentifying your children, Karen.
I think he was sneaking because he didn't want to be asked to let the dog in.
Oh, okay. And I can hear the dog coming in. Apparently your dog is part rhino.
Oh my God, it's the door. The door doesn't quite fit the frame. It was installed by it was installed by people that I think my father-in-law found on Craigslist, so.
Well, at least you guys are still alive. Anyway, let's go through the next 20 seconds. Try hard.
Okay.
Dude, you're still a virgin?
Nice guys finish last.
Hit it and quit it. Boys will be boys. It's a pretty colorful cocktail you've got there. You're so sensitive for a guy. Dude, are you on your period?
Okay. That was a manly effort, Karen.
Yeah.
And okay, so virgins, you're still a virgin. So virgin shaming is bad. And also, I assume hit it and quit it. Is this just specifically to men?
I think hit it and quit it is sort of, it's a masculine way of expressing, just go for the one-nighter and then don't text her the next day or whatever.
Yeah, probably because she's a psycho of some sort.
Yeah, or whatever, right? Like maybe it's just you don't want to. Maybe she's not that attractive. I don't know. Like maybe who knows? There are all kinds of reasons why a man or a woman would choose to have sex with somebody but not want to have a relationship.
And what is with this look of fucking contempt?
I don't know.
All right, okay. Hit it and quit it, because that's the one that was really memorable for me. What about what women are told? Like, take him for all he's worth.
Yeah.
Accuse him of domestic violence or rape, so you get the kids.
Oh, like, when the guy gets divorced, right? When the guy's wife files for divorce, because she's unhappy, right? She's just not 100% content, right? What do they tell the guy? Oh, you should have worked harder. You should have loved her proper, right? You should have done more for her. Should have paid more attention. Should have been more emotionally available, right? And this is what they tell guys when they, what guys will tell other guys often when they talk about how their relationship is kind of tanking, right? Or complain about how their wife seems to have their testicles stored in a fucking mason jar under the fucking sink in the kitchen, right? Is you just got to do more. You just got to try harder. You just got to blah, 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 right? And what do women's female friends usually tell them is you deserve better.
Oh, God, those fucking words. Okay, hit it and quit it? I see your hit it and quit it and raise you one. Take them to the cleaners or you deserve better.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. I'm going to go through the entire thing with the hit it and quit it thing. Let me tell you something. take him to the cleaners and you deserve better. Those things leave a trail of wreckage you can see from orbit. Hit it and quit it? What does that leave? I'm sorry. Sex is not something that men do to women, and women have to process like some sort of nuclear waste. You're not dumping a bunch of nuclear waste in a woman and running away to the Benny Hill theme song, laughing your ass off.
All right. Oh, that would be cool, though.
Sorry? It's a mutually pleasurable activity. It's a mutually pleasurable activity. So when guys say hit and quit, divorce isn't a mutually pleasurable activity, by the way. Sex is. Divorce isn't. When guys say hit it or quit it, essentially means let me engage with this mutually pleasurable activity with this young, gentle woman and then not do anything more with her. So fucking what?
Yeah.
Like, unless you're going to argue somehow, Huffpo, that fucking
men owe women something tangible, material in return for sex.
Or are you going to argue that sex is somehow harmful to women, consensual sexual encounter is somehow harmful to women? Unless you're going to argue that, which no, I'm sorry. Women aren't that stupid. If they're part of the hookup culture, that's exactly what they want. They want to hit it and quit it themselves. They're part of the hookup culture. That's what they want. Otherwise, women wouldn't be part of it. Women aren't that stupid. You know what a fucking one-night stand is. Most women understand that. They're not that stupid.
Yeah.
They want the fucking cock. And often they do not want the requisite relationship attached to the cock. So these guys are saying hit it and quit it. They're probably saying hit it and quit it with women who want exactly that. Now, some women in that scenario may also want the bragging rights of the person or the man wanting a relationship with them as well, which they will subsequently walk out of.
Yeah. No, this is one of the things. Like, women seem to, it's not that they want a relationship with the guy, it's they want the option, right? They want to be the one to turn down the relation. They want to be the one with the veto power.
Yep. Because if they, trust me, if a lot of these guys who say hit it and quit it actually offered the women in question a relationship, how long would it last before she walks away?
Yeah.
And seriously, think about that. In most scenarios where the woman wants a relationship, she doesn't want a relationship. She wants the option to walk away from a relationship. Now, here's the other thing. Once again, hit it and quit it as regards to a mutually pleasurable activity in which there are no losers at the end. Divorce, a mutually pleasurable consensual activity in which there are no losers at the end. Get that through your skull, Huffpo. There are no losers at the end of casual sex. None whatsoever. At the end of divorce, which is a non-consensual legal proceeding, there are a hell of a lot of fucking losers.
Yeah.
And one winner, usually the lawyer, because you know what? In most cases where a divorce happens and the woman is not getting a divorce for extremely specific practical financial reasons, or the fact that he's so abusive she's worried that she'll be able to live the next day, women usually are the losers too, because what they end up with is someone else's seconds instead of their firsts. I hope that's not too insulting.
No, it's like nobody benefits from a divorce, and this is really the horrible thing. And this is why, I mean, like, I try to draw people's attention to the research that's shown that when it comes to like couples in sort of end of relationship counseling, right? And so when you go to the divorce lawyer in Canada, they automatically say, I'm required by law to make you aware that there is counseling available for free in order to try to reconcile your marriage, right? And so, I mean, like, it's even built into the system that the system promotes measures to try to encourage people to stay together, right? Some people take advantage of this. They may take advantage of it in order to try to reconcile, or in order to try to better and more fairly and more amicably negotiate the process of splitting up. right? So essentially what they did was they took a bunch of couples that were in sort of this end stage of the relationship. One or both of them wanted a divorce. They went into counseling, either to reconcile or to facilitate a nicer, friendlier breakup. And they looked at the ones who actually decided to stick it out and the ones who decided fuck it and left, particularly the women, right? Because the women are typically the ones who file for divorce. The women who stuck it out after 5 years, they ranked their happiness higher than the women who left, right? They were better off financially. They were better off psychologically, right? They were more content with their lives, more satisfied with their lives than the women who had actually just said, fuck it, I'm leaving. Now, of course, that may mean part of that might be that the women who decided to stick it out, it wasn't as bad as the women who decided to leave, right? But it does go to show that women who filed for divorce, right, and then decided, okay, well, I'll stick it out for a while, 5 years later, right, they're glad they did.
And the women who divorce, I assume, the only people who are, sorry, go ahead.
On average, the women who divorced were less happy than the ones who stuck with the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I'm not surprised, because when you get a divorce, and this is for women, like if you're dealing with a practical financial issue that cannot be resolved by anything but divorce, fine. If you're dealing with severe abuse, fine. If you're dealing with anything that's practical, like the divorce will solve that immediate issue, that probably, divorce is for you.
Mm.
If you're dealing with general discontent, because your emotions aren't as pumpy or as flowy, your pheromones and your hormones aren't quite as going as hard as when you were courting, that kind of general discontent or feeling like you can get better. No. If you're getting divorced because you think you can get something better, ladies, you're not. You're an idiot. You're not going to get something better.
Yeah, 90% of the time, if it's just discontent or just general unsatisfaction, you're not going to be able to, you may get very briefly with the new partner that you have that initial feeling of butterflies in your stomach and all the excitement that goes along with that and everything. But that relationship is going to end up just like the previous one. All of those feelings fade over time, right? When you
faster the second time.
Yeah, when you actually show, when you put people in an fMRI, right, and you show them a montage of like photos that are like 1/10 of a second each, right? And these are people who either said that they found the love of their life 3 weeks ago or they found the love of their life 15 years ago, right? And you're showing them this montage of pictures that they can barely register consciously. And one of those pictures is the love of their life, the person that they have said, this is the one, right? It's a completely different part of the brain that fires up between those two groups of people, the ones who've been together for 3 weeks and the ones who've been together for 15 years. And the ones who've been together for 15 years, it's all about compassion and familiarity and friendship and safety and mutuality and warmth, right? As opposed to the parts of the brains that fire up when this is the love of my life and it's been 3 weeks and it's anxiety and it's intensity and it's, huge amounts of lust and, huge dopamine responses in your brain. Yeah, no, that doesn't last. And if it did last, you would be dysfunctional. Like you would not be able, I can't imagine being able to function day to day if I felt the same way about my boyfriend now after 5 years as I did in the first 2 weeks I was dating him.
It'd be pretty crazy.
It was like completely, you're obsessed with, your work suffers, you're sneaking off to text him, and you're going to get fired, right? But you don't care. You're going to drive to his place in the middle of the night just to fucking get laid and then you stumble back home at like 4 o'clock in the morning to get your kids to school. Like, yeah, no, like that's no way. I mean, it's worth it in that first 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever, but you can't live like that.
Yeah, well, the way I would put it is, and just in light of what you're saying, and also what I've read and heard, is if you're a woman who's contemplating saying to your thinking about your husband and he just doesn't do it for you anymore, you're just generally discontented with your relationship, and you divorce, you are essentially getting someone else's sloppy seconds. Like a plate of food after someone else is through with it. So instead of just being satisfied with your plate of food after you're through with it and just enjoying, after you eat, you feel good, you feel warm and content. I mean, it's not as fun as eating, but it's still pleasant. Instead of that pleasant, warm feeling of contentment, you're scrubbing out someone else's fucking plate. You're an idiot. You have essentially changed your role from that of sitting back after a nice meal in a restaurant to being the fucking busboy. To being
an addict. You're an addict.
Yeah.
You're addicted to it.
Well, not just addicted to it. You're like you're cleaning up after someone else's sloppy seconds instead of enjoying your meal.
Just like the guys, the unfortunate people like me who are addicted to cigarettes, who can't afford them. And so they dig through the big public ashtrays outside of restaurants for the half-smoked cigarettes.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, no, just stick with your first partner. And hey, here's a thought. If you want more attention, why don't you give him more attention?
Oh my God. And mine's calling me right now because he doesn't realize I'm on the air.
Okay, well.
But I'm just going to let it ring.
Hypocrites. Hashtag
no, it's because he's just driving to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's had his lunch, he's driving to the gym, and he's like, oh, I feel like chatting while I drive. That's all it is.
Yeah. You know what, ladies? If you are divorcing your husband for discontent, you're an idiot. Like, if it's practical, yeah, sure, fine. If it's abuse, yeah, definitely. If it's just discontent and you just want to get that high again.
There are things that you can do too, right? To really keep the, sort of just to build the friendship.
You're a fool. You're a patsy for the lawyers.
To the point where like your partner becomes your best friend. Your partner becomes the person that you feel the most comfortable with, that you don't want to not lie beside in your bed. Even if some nights you don't have sex, right? Like there are things that you can do to maintain that. And some of that takes a little bit of work, but it's worth it. So.
Well, generally it is. Generally, you never get a better glove than the one that you've already, worked in. You just need to oil it up if it's looking shaggy. Oh my God. That's
together like an old pair of slippers.
Yeah, just oil that glove up.
So, anyhow.
Get through the next 20 seconds.
Okay.
Just pick out the most egregious.
Okay.
You and your boyfriend, who's the man? Sorry.
Who's the man? That's just a curiosity. Right? I think from straight people, it's just a curiosity as to, and when they say who's the man, what they mean is who's the dominant partner, or who's the top and who's the bottom. And sometimes there's not a strict, he's the top and he's the bottom. Sometimes it's sort of just whoever ends up on top or on the bottom. But there are some relationships, same-sex relationships, where somebody is quite obviously dominant and the other is, generally more submissive, and at least sexually. And so, I mean, it's just a curiosity, people.
Yeah. How does this
hurt annoying?
How does this hurt women?
It make it annoying to explain to straight people who have no idea how gay relationships work, right? It may get tiresome, right? But you have to sort of And I'm sure that sometimes when people inquire about stuff like that, they're being cunty. But I think most of the time it's just a genuine, like, I don't understand how that would work. How does that work?
But I think what they're saying is that it's bad for women because the assumption is that the man is the responsible party in the relationship.
Well, the man is the one who's, penetrating too, and the woman is the one who's being penetrated.
Yeah, although those logistics of physical sex, of course, men don't have to penetrate or be penetrated. But the thing is with this is the roles that we assign men and women are really based on moral typecasting, which I think are actually pretty gender neutral to a certain extent. Now, there may be some biological components, but moral typecasting is generally gender neutral. We expect the man to take responsibility, but the woman to be the one he takes responsibility for.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't necessarily that dominance is sort of, it doesn't make sense in that context.
No.
Dominance and submission does not make sense in the context of moral typecasting, because the person who has agency is expected to serve the person who doesn't.
True.
It's not a dominance and submission. No, certainly, I don't know. Human dominance and submission is so bizarre compared to like animal dominance and submission, because with animals, with like non-social animals, there is a very strong hierarchy, and the submissive animals don't get as many resources as the dominant animals if they don't make them themselves. And sometimes the dominant animal will acquire those resources. But with humans, when you have someone who's in a so-called dominant position, human dominance, that usually isn't the case. What usually happens is the dominant person takes responsibility for providing resources for the subordinate person, which doesn't happen in the wild. And one of the examples of this, I'll just get to my example and then I'll let you go, Karen. One of the examples of this is in the military, there is a habit or a tradition where if supplies are low, the enlisted men, that is the privates, the corporals, the sergeants, the enlisted men will eat before the officers. And that's sort of an aspect of moral typecasting. Even though the officers are dominant, the expectation is that they will provide for those they are dominant over first before themselves. And that is a very human thing. That's what makes human dominance so strange in the animal kingdom. And I think that's an aspect of moral typecasting. And it's like, so when someone is saying, are you the man in the relationship? They're simultaneously saying, are you taking responsibility for providing for your partner? That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And you...
I would agree, and for protecting them, and for mitigating the consequences of their decisions, and all of that. Are you still there?
Sorry, and they're making that out to be hurtful to women. The fact that men are expected to be the quote-unquote dominant, responsible partner.
Yeah.
Is it also hurtful to children when they have a loving parent who sets reasonable boundaries and takes care of them?
I know this is one of the things that drives me crazy about the whole misogyny narrative, is that they will say, oh, well, women were kept out of positions of power and responsibility. And I was like, okay, so do people hate their own children now? Because, you can't argue. You can argue that it's unfair, right? Or that it's not okay, or that it shouldn't be that way. But you can't argue that it's automatically based on hate when parents do this very thing for their children out of love.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that treating children as children indefinitely throughout their lifetime is harmful, but the act is not. The act of taking loving responsibility for another human being is not harmful.
Hateful. You can definitely argue whether it's harmful, but it's not hateful, right? And this is what drives me absolutely fucking batty about the misogyny narrative, the woman hating. We live in a woman hating society, right? Our society just hates women. Like that stupid bitch who wrote for Feministing or whatever said on that, when she was talking, they were talking, they had Sabrina Rubin Erdely on the who's that freaking woman who was like, hard worker. I have pictures of folks picking cotton on my office wall. What
the fuck?
Oh no, she's like she hosts a show for like MSNBC or CNN or some shit. God, why can't I remember her name?
Because I've infected you.
Harris Perry, right? Okay, so Melissa Harris Perry has Sabrina Rubin Erdely and some chick from Rachel Dongyal or something like that from Feministing on her show to talk about the Jackie UVA rape case. And this woman from Feminist, I think that this case just absolutely confirms that our society 100% hates women, just hates us. Okay, and it would if it was true. But it's not. It was a hoax. You know, and I hate to quote Ann Coulter. I really fucking hate to quote Ann Coulter, right? But if we have this huge fucking epidemic of rape on college campuses in the US, right? You'd think that the campus anti-rape activists would be able to actually show us an actual case that doesn't turn out to be a hoax.
That is a good point. Next 20 seconds.
Okay.
I don't date short guys.
Well, you slept with her?
Don't sleep with a virgin. They get clingy.
You can't make a hoe a housewife.
You're gonna let that guy talk to your girlfriend?
You can't make a hoe a housewife. Yes, you can.
Okay, well, all right, here. I'm not sure what they're trying to say with these ones. They seem like, I mean, it seems like, yeah, they're trying to support their premise that these things hurt women more. I'm not.
But these are like, they can't say that like, okay, these are things that only men hear because, you know, you slept with him. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Isn't that one of like the biggest causes of false rape accusations? Oh my God, you slept with him?
Okay, maybe go back a bit and let's listen to that one again. You know, I'm failing at even setting.
Well, because it's so fast, right? It's
so fast. That's what it's as Goodfella says. They just turn the shit hose on.
Yeah.
For like 2 seconds, and they've already gotten it everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's like it goes. It's designed to be this way. Right. And I think I might have mentioned this in the first 48 Things video, that they design it to be this way because they don't want you to actually stop and think about every single one of these. It's just a big, huge barrage. Bam, 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 the end. Right. And you haven't had time to process any of them, let alone wonder if that's actually true or accurate or you know how it's harmful or if it's harmful or whatever, right?
Okay, can I point something out?
They don't give you the time to think about it.
No, can I point something out? Like 80% of these are not things that men are told about women, maybe presumably, not actually things that men are told about men. This is bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
This is not the equivalent of the original video. And you know what? I'm sure Huffpo is fully aware of this. Saying that what women are told about women is equivalent to what men are told about men is dishonest. It's frustrating.
Well, you know, honestly, it's a lot of that. A lot of the previous video was actually compliments. It was people complimenting women and girls, right? And very few of these. I don't know that there are. Maybe there'll be one like, you're a lady killer or something like that, right? But these aren't compliments towards these men. They're just requirements or admonitions. So,
and also expectations that women's behavior might actually affect the experience that men have in the situations that they're in.
Oh, well, you know, like honestly, let's just listen to this last bit again.
Okay.
So fucking fast. They're so horrible with this.
Sure, guys.
Well, you slept with her?
Don't sleep with a virgin. They get clingy.
You can't make a hoe a housewife.
You know that don't sleep with the virgin guy? He looked kind of weird. He just kind of looked like if I was gonna go on a date with him, I'd definitely phone a friend, you know, and let her know where I was, you know, gonna meet him and what time I was gonna be home. And if you don't hear from me by 1 a.m, call me. And if I don't answer, maybe phone my mom or the police.
Okay, all right. Now, to be fair, you have to wonder about a guy who believes in a system, a moral system in which he is not responsible for his individual behavior, but all men are. And also, actually, you know, you got to wonder about a guy when you go up to him and say, you know, men are rapists and child molesters and abusers, and he says yes, instead of, what the fuck is your problem?
Yeah.
You gotta just sort of wonder about that. The kind of guy who's attracted to this kind of rhetoric.
It wasn't even anything like as far as like how, you know, his facial structure or anything inherent. It was just the way he was smiling when he said it. It was just.
Well, a lot of the feminists we review have mastered the art of the fucking creepy smile.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on.
You're gonna let that guy talk to your girlfriend?
Now you...
You know what? You know what men are more likely to hear than that? Are you going to let him talk to me that way?
No shit. Oh, God. Sanctimonious fucktard alert.
Oh, my God.
Look at... Oh, my... Oh, the smug.
Here's the thing, right? This shit that, you know, they were talking about with, you know, the things that women hear, they're talking about the things that women hear from everybody, right? Like from other women and from men and from their parents and, you know, from their friends and stuff like that, right? This all seems to be about or being presented as what men say to other men, right? Because otherwise they would have actually had that in there. Are you just going to let him talk to me that way?
Well, I think the assumption is that it's a jealous boyfriend, or is that he has to be jealous about other men talking to his women.
It's his friend telling him, "Are you gonna let that guy talk to your girlfriend?"
Ugh.
So it's like a man enforcing jealousy on his friend, as opposed to, you know, things that women say to police male behavior.
Oh my God, these men, like, they all make me want to punch them in the face. Like, all of them. Could you please just dial back the smug? Just a little bit.
Look,
I feel like I'm choking on it.
These eyebrows, right? Oh my.
But every single time well, not every time we pause. The first one just looked really shocked and scared.
Yeah.
Perhaps they're holding his family hostage to get him to appear in this one. But the two consecutive things that we've paused on in this video are men with the most smug, sanctimonious looks on their face. It's like, please die. I mean, I would never actually punch you in the face, sir. Never. But you just make me want to.
I know.
Badly.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling it myself. I don't want to hurt my knuckles, so I have to finish cleaning my fridge.
Yeah.
So.
Gotta fight him.
Don't be a little bitch.
Stop being such a fag.
Man up.
You're gonna see Adele in concert?
You cry during movies?
You're gonna let her talk to you like that?
Oh. Are you gonna let her talk to you like that? This is all about men. Only men say this shit. Are you gonna let her talk to you like that? No. What a man is more likely to fucking hear than that is, you're gonna let him talk to me that way.
Or even, well, you're gonna let her talk to you like that. Well, I guess I've heard that sometimes, but no, actually, I theoretically.
Well, you know, honestly, there are some guys, man. My boyfriend has one guy that he works with, and it seems like, you know, even he's got his 3 bosses, and there's like the hyper masculine one, and there's the really jokey, funny one who I motorboated at the Christmas party. on camera, right? And it was all just hilarious. And then they have the sort of the metrosexual one he's just very good natured and he's a little sensitive and he drinks wine coolers and he doesn't, and he's just a sweetheart, right? And even he's watching this couple interact, right? And he's going, oh my God, I can't believe he lets her treat him that way.
Yeah, but that's abuse. So what you're saying is that men okay, they snuck this one in, and this is really sinister because once again, they're sneaking this shit in. A lot of this stuff is just what men are told about women, which is basically Huffpo's 48 things men hear about women in a lifetime that are harmful to women. Why don't you label this? But this one is actually sinister because they're saying that it's not legitimate to tell a guy, are you going to let a woman talk to you like that? Well, are you going to let her talk to you like that? Could you imagine that someone saying, Huffpo presenting it as sinister for a woman to say to another woman, are you going to let him talk to you like that?
I know.
Because that could be a sign that the female partner in this instance is being verbally abusive to their partner.
Yeah, or more than verbally abusive. Just
and I don't mean
just verbally abusive in public, and then maybe there's more going on at home.
Yeah. And I don't mean jokingly or the kind of people who just bring everything out in the open in public and they're just like, fuck you, whatever. I mean that this is a situation where it's possibly very one-sided. Because generally if it's two-sided, you can skate on over it.
Oh, and honestly, some of the ways that my boyfriend talked to each other even in public, right? If you just read a transcript, you'd think that we hated each other.
Yeah.
Right? We were both like hyper abusive to each other, but it's always, always, always just with the smile and the wink. And we know we're joking and we're just teasing each other in the whole bit. And I mean, like I did this with my boyfriend's bosses at the Christmas party, teased the fuck out of them, ribbed them like mad and all of this. The other women who are girlfriends with or wives with this company don't tend to do that. But nobody takes offense. It's all just funny. It's just fucking funny, right? There is a certain type of speaking to your partner, though, where watching it, right? Watching two people interact in this way, that it's not joking, right?
Yeah.
And that he's not enjoying it. And that it actually really is abusive.
Yeah.
And doing it in public, right? Doing it in front of people I want to say emasculating, but it feels the exact same way as a woman when your male partner talks to you in that way in front of people. It's humiliating. It undermines your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-confidence. Right? It undermines your sense of safety in your relationship. My partner is willing to treat me this way, not just treat me this way, but in front of everybody, right? To add that, to pile that humiliation on top. And he feels safe enough, right? To treat me this way that he'll do it in front of other people, right?
Yeah.
As a woman, it's a horrible position to be in. As a man, it's a horrible position to be in. It's humiliating. It's abuse.
Yeah, and I would say that I agree, and I wanted to add on to one of your points. Calling it emasculating or being a cuck is actually blaming men for the abuse that they're experiencing. It's not emasculating to be yelled at or hit by a woman. That's her choice, not his. It is plain simple. It's humiliation.
Yeah.
And that's not emasculating because she can't do anything to the guy's masculinity by hitting him or insulting him. Women can't do anything to a man's masculinity by doing that. So it's not emasculating. So we add on this layer, by saying it's emasculating, we add on this layer of responsibility that somehow a man's identity is related to how other people treat him, specifically women, in many ways. And so it's like, no, like I agree. We should reject that notion that abuse is emasculating. And we should also reject this HuffPost notion that somehow if one man says to another, are you going to treat her that way, it's illegitimate and it's something sinister. Well, it's not. It actually can be legitimate concern for his well-being because his partner is being abusive.
Agreed.
And the fact that you're making this out to be somehow illegitimate, Huffpo, is extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on.
She has you whipped. You're the nurse? I thought you were the doctor.
She has you whipped. Yeah. Okay. Maybe she does. And that would be a shame. Like, I don't think it's okay for either partner to be in a position where they are entirely at the mercy of the whims and, you know, mercurial nature and decisions of the other partner. That's not a partnership.
Well, they haven't even correctly identified the dynamic, because this is once again saying that a man is emasculated based on the behavior of his wife, which basically excuses his abuse. So instead of saying, no, she's an abusive person, he's just an emasculated man because he can't stand up to an abuser. Mm-hmm. So they're not even correctly that is no way harmful to women, because it soft pedals their emotional and physical and sexual abuse towards men and makes men responsible for it.
Yeah, it is harmful toward men, though. Yeah,
it's very harmful towards men.
Okay, but not in the way I think that they think it is.
But something that excuses women's behavior and abuse and makes men responsible for it, they're trying to make that out to be harmful to women in any way.
But they don't see it as excusing women's behavior and making men responsible for it. They see it as misogyny, because by saying, right, by saying that she has you whipped, right? Okay, that means that that man is supposed to be dominant in every single situation in his relationship, and women's proper place is being submissive and weak and subjugated, right? And so this expectation of masculinity, right, that's exemplified in the term "she has you whipped," right, means that that whole freaking dynamic is harmful to women, because it assumes that women should be the ones who are whipped or some shit. It's essentially, they cannot examine any of this stuff in terms other than zero sum. If you say women are not oppressed, their response is, so what you're saying is women oppress men.
God, it's so annoying.
Well, it's the way they think, right?
I know, it's just annoying to deal with. It's just like, I haven't said that men are oppressed. I've just questioned your assumption that women are unilaterally oppressed.
Yeah.
Or that oppression even should apply to gender relations. I mean, to be honest, I am starting to move. For a while, I have been starting to move towards seeing men as oppressed, because the connections between how we treat men and other oppressed groups of people throughout history are getting to be so fucking strong. It's disgusting. Now, my hope is that the dynamic that is gender, like gender is a dynamic. Men and women share a dynamic. My hope is that women will start waking up and saying, you know what? Fuck you. I am not going to let you malign my male relatives and my friends with your goddamn threat narratives, feminists. So you can just, I'm going to take your anti-rape posters and wipe my fucking ass with them. That's what I'm hoping women will do. And I'm hoping, and I think there is a sliver of hope that it will happen, because men are women's relatives and sons and our friends and our lovers, for fuck's sake.
This is why I think that we have not experienced, I think there's only one male genocide that has ever occurred, like sort of a female-led male genocide. And that was, I forget whether it was in Myanmar.
Papua New Guinea?
That might have been it. It was a village, a couple of villages where there was constant tribal warfare, tribal conflict going on, and the women in these two villages decided enough is enough, and they murdered an entire generation of their male children.
That's pretty.
to put a stop to it, right?
That's some
I
pretty
mean,
extreme behavior.
pretty extreme behavior, right? But very, very anomalous when it comes to how genocides usually play out. I mean, yes, they do tend to target boys and men first, and sometimes almost exclusively, but at least for slaughter. But they're almost always based on tribal divisions, religious divisions, things like that. That it's one group committing genocide on members of another group. It's almost never, except for this one case in these two villages, it's never a case of women enacting a gendercide, a male genocide against men in their own group, right? So, but we are living in interesting times because this is probably the first time in human history that women are hearing almost exclusively bad things about their own men. They're hearing their own men being talked about in the ways that the black man was talked about by white society during Jim Crow, or the way Muslims are talked about by Muslim men are talked about by conservatives in the West, or, you know, men of other groups, you know, Jewish men are being talked about by German Aryans. You know, like, it's right now we're actually seeing our own men being targeted by our own women, which is kind of scary. At least kind of rhetoric that they've always really reserved for men in outgroups.
Yeah, now it's being directed at all men, and it's fucking. Like I said, my hope is that because they're now directing it at all men, and so they've got men who women regularly associate in the crosshairs. So when you look at these posters that feminists put out, like, name the problem with a man's face, you know, they're not talking about those men over there anymore, ladies. They're talking about the men that you talk to every day.
The men you raise.
The men you raise, the men who raised you, your brothers. They're talking about your friends. They're talking about the men who put in your driveway, the men who, you know, fixed your roof. They're talking about the men who you interact every day of your life with. That's who they're talking about.
Shovel your car out, you know, the ones who stopped and offered you help when you were broken down on the side of the freaking highway, right? The one that helped you collect all of your groceries when the bag broke, right? Or when you dropped all of your freaking files, the guy who crouched down and helped you pick them up, right? They're talking about all of those men. They're talking about the men who do rescue work, who are first responders, right? Like, who pull people out of burning buildings. And you know, when your baby's choking on a hot dog, they're the ones who arrive and fucking save his life, right? They're talking about those men.
Yeah. So think about, like, if you're a woman listening to this story, thinking about a man in the last week who you could thank for something, who did something, went out of his way to do something really great for you. It doesn't have to be, it could be a stranger, it could be a friend, it could be a relative. Think about that and know that these feminists, these women, and I suppose men as well, they are creating propaganda to make that guy feel like shit.
Well, and to make you
hate him.
Trust and fear him and hate him.
Yeah, they're targeting their propaganda at him. They're telling him that he's a rapist, that he's defined more as a rapist than someone who wants to help or make the world a better place. They're telling him that he's violent and he's a toxin and he's a danger in society. Well, that's what these people are directing at that man who helped you.
They're telling you that the age-old standards of masculinity, sort of the things that men had to live up to, the traits, the qualities, right? The willingness to act and the capacity to actually do it skillfully, right? That men have always had to live up to, that these masculine qualities that are defined by men historically, that these are toxic qualities. They're toxic to you. They're harmful to you, right? They're bad for everyone, right? When in reality, most of, a lot of these things that have been said in this video are designed to whip men into shape so that they can better take care of you and protect you.
Yeah, but even so, like just imagine that man that you can thank for something, for going out his way to help you, because that's part of his nature as a man.
Yeah.
And imagine him having to live under this burden of mistrust and fear and maligning. Ugh.
I'm not saying that there aren't bad men out there, but fucking hell. It's like they want all men to be painted as bad men.
Yeah, and it just when I think of that, when I think of, for example, my husband having to live with this shit, it makes me so pissed off. I can't even rant. I'm so angry.
Mm.
You know, when I get really angry, I don't get loud.
Hmm.
I get quiet.
Yeah.
And now I am quiet.
All right. Shh. Moving on.
A day of real work in your life. Your wife's not taking your last name.
Do you mind that she makes more money than you?
Isn't that emasculating?
So you're just a stay-at-home dad.
You're gonna let
You know, most dads who stay at home aren't just stay-at-home dads. You realize that, right? And the reason why they, you know, Stefan Molyneux is a stay-at-home dad, who has like a massive YouTube channel and, you know, rakes in a certain amount of money through that and has a certain degree of social status because of it and is considered an expert, at least by, you know, a collective following of people, right, who appreciate his views. If he wasn't doing that, I don't know whether his wife would tolerate him being a stay-at-home dad. And that's the really horrible thing, is that if a man asks you, you're just a stay-at-home dad? It's because that man knows that most women, 99% of women, really aren't interested in supporting a man who does nothing but look after the house and the kids. They know that.
Word.
Just like the men who say man up, right? And boys don't cry and things like that, right? They're saying it because if you don't do that, if you do emote all over the place, none of the women in your life are going to care. They're all going to get freaked out. They're going to get disgusted. Right? They're going to say it's scary when my man loses control of his emotions and actually expresses his vulnerability. Right? They're going to say it's scary, but I don't think it's scary. I think it disgusts them. Right? So all of these men are just essentially giving other men advice on how to survive in the world, how to navigate relationships with their women without those relationships self-destructing. I mean, it's no shock to me, right, that when my boyfriend got really sick, like he'd always had health issues. They were undiagnosed since he was 8 years old. He has an autoimmune disorder that it took over 20 years to diagnose. It's that rare and that fucking weird, right? It was when he got really sick, and when the first time he went into anaphylaxis for no apparent reason, 5 hours after the last thing he put in his body, and he was actually scared because he was in anaphylactic shock. His blood pressure was like way super low. He was dizzy. He could hardly walk. His face was swelling up. His tongue was swelling up. His throat was swelling closed. And he had no idea why, because he hadn't done anything for 5 fucking hours. And his girlfriend got mad at him. She took him to the emergency room, but she was mad at him. She was mad at him for being weak, for being scared, right? For being freaked out. And oh my goodness, it wasn't 5 months later, she was gone.
Well, I can add to that because my husband while we were initially like the first few years that we were together, he would pretty much end up in the hospital, like the emergency room, once every couple months. Um, one time, often with just migraines or bloody, like these epic nosebleeds.
Yeah.
That would last. Like there was one that lasted a week.
Ugh.
Of constant bleeding. And I would take him. The first time we went to the hospital, it was seeing him that sick scared the shit out of me. But I stayed by him. There was a moment there I was like, oh God, can I handle this? And when he was done, when he got out, when they finally got the pain under control, he told me that, when he went to the hospital, when he had to go to the hospital once with his previous girlfriend, she freaked out and just ran.
Yeah.
She just ran. She said, I can't handle this.
Mhm.
Eyes Googling in two different directions like the idiot she was. She was abusive as well. So like,
she didn't sign up to take care of someone. She signed up to be taken care of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she said that after I stayed, he was like, yeah, I'm keeping this one.
Yeah, well, when I started my relationship with my guy, it was a known thing right from the beginning, that he had an undiagnosed something that really gave him random fucked up problems and a massive constellation of seemingly unrelated symptoms. He was seeing several specialists and a psychiatrist. Because and all of those symptoms were from one source, right? So just a very, very bizarre thing. But yeah, no, I knew going in what I was getting into, and I knew that like I had been 3 years supporting myself and my kids just on my own, right? So I knew I was capable of, of dealing with something that was like this, that, a man who would not be the provider. Maybe he will never be the provider. He will always be productive, but he will not, I can't guarantee that he will always be the provider, right? But most women, they're not interested in that. And most women seem to have this relationship with their men's vulnerability that the moment that a man actually shows it, it really is this sort of, it's like touching poop, right? They don't want to touch it. They don't want, it's like a pathogen. It's like, it's unnatural. It's toxic. It's bad. They're not necessarily scared of it. They just don't want anything to do with it. Right? And these are men who are essentially telling other men, well, here's how you're going to have to behave if you don't want your wife to just fucking run away when you're in the emergency room.
Before Just Detention International got taken over by feminazis and turned into shit, it was called Stop Prison Rape, and there was a story that had a whole bunch of testimonials on it by men who had experienced being raped in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, those testimonials disappeared when it became Just Detention International, and they attempted to pretty up prison rape so that people would open up their wallets to help out. And essentially almost all of the testimonials became female prisoners talking about being abused by their male guards, which incidentally is statistically and in terms of absolute numbers, the most unlikely prison rape scenario. Is female prisoners being raped by male guards. Proportionately, the most likely prison rape scenario is actually female prisoners being raped by other women, other female prisoners. After that, it's female guards raping male inmates. And after that, it's male inmates raping other male inmates. And finally, it's male guards raping female inmates. So that's, they focused on the least common scenario because it's it's the pretty scenario. It's the
Yeah.
scenario that everybody likes.
Yeah, no, it fits all of the narratives.
It fits the narratives.
A warm, fuzzy blanket.
Yeah. It makes us all feel warm and fuzzy as we completely ignore real human problems.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the Stop Prison Rape website, there was a testimonial by a guy who had experienced being raped in prison, and he told his after his girlfriend told him how she had been sexually assaulted by her uncle at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He revealed that he had been sexually assaulted. You know, he was sympathetic, and she said, "Oh, how can you be sympathetic? You're a man. You don't know what it's like." So he made the mistake of telling her that he had been raped in prison. Women's compassion at work, friends. He made the mistake of telling her that he had been raped in prison after she said, "Well, you can't possibly know what it's like to be raped." You know what she said to him? You know, shall I tell you?
Yes.
She said, well, she basically broke up with him in that instant and called him, "You punk ass little bitch. You were raped in prison?" That's what she did.
Oh my God.
That's what she did. And these guys in this video, the men in this video, know that these are the standards they're expected to maintain in order to keep a woman happy and engaged and somewhat, I suppose, loyal. Is that they must be forever strong and have no vulnerabilities. And even if they reveal a vulnerability like, oh, by the way, 6 men cornered me in a freaking prison.
Yeah.
And shoved a shiv on my throat, and then I did whatever they told me to do. Even if he reveals a vulnerability like that, I would say the likelihood that the female partner he's revealing the vulnerability to is going to say something like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to say," or "I'm sorry, I can't believe that you've been through that," or something, at least indicating that she cares or sympathizes with him as another human being, is virtually zero. Because I hear a hell of a lot more stories of women saying things like, "Oh my God, you punk ass bitch," than something sympathetic when a man reveals that he has been sexually abused. So these guys, when men say these things to each other, they are saying, you got to hold up this standard. Yeah. And if you've somehow escaped it by being a house husband, wow, what kind of voodoo magic does your cock have?
Yeah.
It's just like, so it's this stuff is it's not just. Actually, I would say it's mostly harmful to men. A lot of this, what they're saying, but Huffpo thinks that it's mostly harmful to women. For whatever reason.
They attribute all of these attitudes to men instead of realizing that, men know. It's like Tom Golden said at the ICMI 14, right? Men know that nobody wants to hear it. Men know that nobody wants to watch them vomit their emotions all over the place. Men know this. That's why they don't do it. They know. And so, and as evidenced by the male tears coffee mugs, right? Go cry your male tears somewhere else, bitch. That's the response that men get when they express their suffering in an honest way. They get feminists taunting them, by drinking. Your male tears are so delicious, right? So, it is really, how much of this is unfair standards placed on men by other men, and how much of it is just the advice that a man needs in order to get through life with as little damage as possible?
And be able to maintain the comfortably numb attitude to not be screaming the entire time.
Yeah. So, all right.
And actually, there is one thing I appreciate feminists for, and that is when they put out stuff like this women worsting stuff. Mm-hmm. There's an anecdote. I've been reading a lot by Zig Ziglar because I want to brush up on some of my business related skills. And he's an anecdote that he said in his book, The Secrets to the Clothes, that he had hurt his foot or his knee very badly. And he went up on stage. Now, as he was getting up on stage, he was actually limping. So he had to take very slow steps. And it was obvious that everybody was like, oh my God, he's very injured, right? Mm. Once he got on stage and he started to do his presentation, it was like his knee was no longer injured at all. Yeah, he's just dynamic presentation, moving around, getting up and down, whatever he needed to do to wow the audience. Yeah. And the reason why was because he was suddenly doing something for someone else. Someone else was the priority. So he could completely ignore his pain so that he could give the audience a good show. But the instant he got off that stage, he collapsed. Mm-hmm. Agony. And what feminists are doing for men, I would say, is that they're saying to the great mass of men who are on that stage, you pay attention to women because they got it worse. Do it for women because they got it worse. Yeah. And the instant, and could you imagine 4 billion men getting off that stage, realizing that they no longer had to do anything for women because women are actually doing okay and you don't really need to sacrifice, you don't need to endure the pain, all at once collapsing under the weight of all that pain. Yeah. Feminism is keeping that at bay. Yeah. But I don't think it's out of mercy or sympathy or compassion. No. It's because they want to continue to keep men, keep the show going.
Well, they want to keep men serving women, right?
Yeah, they want to keep that situation that men are putting on a show for women. But which makes it imperative that we find a way to build some structure to channel that. Because when that wave hits, when that wave of men collapsing hits, holy shit, we won't have a society anymore.
No, we won't, because they're doing all of the necessary shit.
Yeah, it scares. It's not just that we won't have a society anymore. How would we keep men from committing suicide? How would we keep men from harming themselves?
Or each other.
Yeah. So it's like at one point I look at Honey Badger Radio, I see the amount of audience we have, and it's like it's disheartening, but at the same time I'm like, if we were bigger, how much more pain would we need to process? Yeah. And that is daunting. Let me tell you. So in that way, I can give feminists some props. You're keeping the wave of pain back with this bullshit, and it is bullshit.
Oh, it's fucking retarded.
You are actually biding us some time as we figure out how to channel that wave. But anyway.
All right, moving on.
Yes.
Your son take dance class? All men cheat. They're programmed that way.
Nice car. Overcompensating for something?
You better keep that daughter of yours locked up.
Isn't that like a compliment on his daughter?
Yeah.
But
yeah, it is.
And I'm pretty sure I've heard you got to keep your son locked up too.
Oh yeah, no. My sister has a boy who is extremely popular with the ladies. I think he's just done high school. And he's had girlfriends since kindergarten, and he never chased any women. They all, any girls or women, they all were like, I'm Duncan's girlfriend now. Yeah. So, I mean, there are some young men who just have it. They have looks, they have a personality, they have a winning way about them. Right from the time they're little, they're just, yeah. So, yeah. And she needs to lock him away. So,
and actually, that's considering because I have I'm in the center where I know several families with young men. Mm-hmm. And I know that they are scared shitless that every girlfriend that crosses the threshold what they're going to do to those young. This is secret. This is stuff that people don't really talk about, but they're scared that she will get pregnant.
Yep.
And not by accident, but on purpose in order to trap them.
Oh,
there's a very real fear of families with young men for that.
My sister had to sort of sit down with her son and discuss his, I think not current anymore, girlfriend, and essentially explain that this girl's extremely high maintenance, and I know that she makes you feel good, and I know that she makes you, feel like, because she's very needy, she makes you feel reliable, powerful, and needed and powerful and all of this stuff, right? But you're missing classes, and you're missing practices, and you're missing your obligations that you have taken on, right, to work toward your future, because she wants you to drive her from one side of town to the other. She can take the bus. Like this, no girl is worth flunking out of grade 12. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as I know, they're no longer dating, but I mean, it was a difficult conversation for my sister and her husband to have with their son, because I mean, you know that what your son is what he's doing, and all of these things that he's doing, they're coming from a good place. I want to be there for my girlfriend. I want to be an engaged boyfriend. I want to look after her. I want to, all of this stuff, right? I want to be there. I want to be available, right? And it's really difficult to tell a young man at that age who's enamored of somebody that, okay, this girl is actually really taking advantage of you, right? Like, she's really taking advantage of you.
Yeah, if I actually was a mother of a son and a daughter, I'd be more scared for my son.
Oh, I definitely am with mine. And it's not even just the kind of girls that they would end up with, because I think that my oldest in particular, he's not going to end up with anyone if there's no one worth having, and he'll be just fine with that, right? My younger son, though, he's a little bit more concerned with making money, being popular, having people like him, fitting in, being social, all of those things that my older two kids never really cared about. And that's going to be what bites him in the ass. So.
Yeah. Okay. We got what, 12 seconds left?
Okay.
Do the cooking.
I see who wears the pants in your marriage.
Can you even get it up? He was from a time.
Okay, you're old, dude.
It's remarkable.
You're fucking old. Do you know what? You know what women talk about post-menopause? Do you have vaginal dryness too?
Okay, but who's saying, can you get it up? Like, I can't imagine the scenario in which two men in a situation with just casual conversation. So, Frank, can you get it up?
I could see a guy like my dad, okay, sitting around with his buddies, right, and maybe mentioning, how he and the wife, he did some stuff last night, and oh yeah, I still got it. And his friends going, man, like, you're freaking 84. Can you even get it up anymore? And my dad going, fuck yeah.
Oh,
maybe not like I used to, but when it counts, right? I mean, like, this is like, but it's when you get old, your body stops just being available to you on command and on demand, right? And it's not just your dick and the erection bit. It might be your dick and the incontinence bit. It might be, your butthole and needing to, you know, carry special wipes in your jacket for the occasional accidental shart. You know, like your body, it's just not young anymore. It's not just going to obey your every whim anymore.
Well, and it also, like, it's sort of like the snarkiness is, can you get it up? Like, it's his fault that his body's breaking down. Imagine that with older women. Are you dry? I mean, are you even, like, can you even get wet anymore as an insult?
No. And, like, here's the thing, postmenopausal women have a real difficulty with lubrication, and not only that, the lining of the vagina becomes, and all of the tissues involved become much more delicate, right? And so you have dryness, and you have much more potential for, you know, pain and soreness and injury and tearing and all of this other stuff that goes along with sex after you've hit menopause. That's why there's a thing called, like, lube, right? Lube. It's wonderful stuff, not just for anal, right? And, like, nobody would ever, like, sneeringly say, yeah, what, so you can't get wet anymore? You've totally lost it.
Jesus Christ. Can I point something out about this guy? He looks like a fucking evil mastermind.
He looks like the guy in the American Gothic painting.
Yeah, he does, but could notice the complete lack of smile or laugh lines.
Yeah, no, we need the pitchfork on the one side and the identically dour old lady
on this. Yeah, but how is it
fully tight bun? Yeah, we need her on the other side.
How is it possible that this man has lived, what, 60, 70 years, maybe 80?
Oh,
and has apparently never smiled once.
Oh, I think he has, but
no, but look at the absence of any kind of laugh lines or.
Okay, you got me there.
Okay, move it back. Let's see what he has to say specifically.
He was from a time when men were men.
Oh, there we go. And he is smiling. Look, he's even got a little dimple right here.
Yeah, but it's not even reaching his eyes. That's not a real smile. That's the duping or duplicitous shit.
But, okay, he was from a time when men were men. You know, I think that a lot of, like, this is one of the things, is that humans actually have an inherent need for identity. They do. And
yes, we're aware.
So that lament, he was from a time when men were men, right? All that really means is, like, somebody I was talking to yesterday in the comment section of one of my videos, right? He said that right now, man is a human without an identity. It's a job without a description.
Mm-hmm.
It's a role without purpose, right? It's essentially like, and women too, right? Because with men, you still have these sort of standards, and they feel arbitrary now because they're no longer necessarily necessary, right? But there's still some standards, right? And so there is that sort of, I think, for a lot of men, a lot of even young men, right, are reaching for the older masculine standards, right? Because it's something to live up to. It's something to actually, it's a role, right? Women, on the other hand, you know, they're miserable, right? They're absolutely miserable right now. Their happiness as measured, right? When they started measuring men and women's happiness and satisfaction with their lives, women were consistently happier with their lives than men right up until the 1970s. And then, oh my goodness, women's happiness started to go down and men's happiness kind of pretty much stayed even. And women are essentially, there is no standard you're allowed to put on them. There is no imposition of a role or a set of traits or a set of expectations. It is essentially, they are untethered and just floating around in the ether, right, with nothing to anchor their identity to.
You can't even judge them or give them consequences consistent with any kind of morality. Because I heard that feminists complained about The Hateful Eight, which I watched with Brian this weekend. By the way, watch it. It's a good show.
Okay.
Or a good video. Or movie. Yeah. I think it's, in my opinion, it's probably the Quentin Tarantino movie that I've enjoyed the best. But take it with a grain of salt. I like Westerns. I really like Westerns.
Okay.
So, what happened was the feminists were complaining about how Domergue, which was the female character, the female fugitive, or actually the female prisoner, was treated by the male bounty hunter. Because when you watch the movie, he's actually very quick to smack the crap out of her.
Excellent.
On the other hand, she sort of really provokes it constantly.
Yeah.
Like, she is a really nasty piece of work, and you could see how if she was a man, he's basically treating her how he would treat a man.
Huh.
Yeah, in some points where he's like, "This is not a woman." But so it's actually, he's treating her commiserate with her behavior, which is appalling. She's a reptile. She's truly a fucking reptile in the show. Just a disturbing human being. And feminists are upset about it because they think it encourages violence against women. No, it does not encourage violence against women. It encourages violence against assholes.
Yeah, reptiles.
Reptiles, psychotic asshole reptiles who sometimes take the shape of men and sometimes take the shape of women. In this instant, took the shape of a woman.
Yeah.
And they're complaining that she is being treated identically to how they would treat a man in this scenario. A criminal.
Oh, yeah.
Not just a criminal, man, because you can retain some sort of likability as a criminal.
Yeah.
But she is just just awful, awful human being. But we can't treat her as an awful human being. We have to continue to just see her as a woman and value her womanhood above her own personal choices and behavior, recognizing her personal choices and behavior and giving them commiserate consequences to them as we would a man. And so it's exactly that. It's not even that women still have an identity. And it's like, and it's identity that's completely and utterly destructive to their personhood. But you're right. They're floating around in the ether with nothing, like no consequences, no expectations, no responsibilities, either aside from being a very, very valuable object. Because feminists, you are the ones who are actually reducing women down to objects when you say that Daisy Domergue, or whatever the hell her name was, did not deserve to be treated commiserate with her behavior and her personal choices. Mm-hmm. You're saying that she should have been objectified down to being just a very, very valuable sack of meat in a certain shape.
With a vagina.
With a vagina. That's the only salient characteristic that anybody needs to actually recognize about women. But no, we can't actually treat women the way they deserve to be treated based on their behavior, which includes positive behavior as well as negative behavior. Yeah. Which means, when you're a woman who does things right, who cares about people, who cares about society, you're treated exactly the same as some snaky-eyed criminal bitch who wants to feast on people's goddamn spleens. Is that fucking fair? You've completely erased women's personhood in that.
Yeah.
You want women who are good women, who do good, who try to have character and integrity, try to build something in their community, try to develop strong relationships, or be good business people, or be good charity, do charity work. You are saying they should be treated equivalent to the skis, the female vaginal slime that acts like total abusive criminal, like just exploitative psychotic people. You're saying all women should be treated the same just because women deserve respect because they're women. Well, you know what you sacrifice in the process? You sacrifice women's personhood. Because I could tell you that a woman who is a pillar of her community deserves to be treated commiserate with her behavior, and so does a woman who's a fucking psychotic criminal.
There you go.
And that is respecting both women's personhood. All right.
I think this is the last one, this guy. There we go.
Okay, all right. So he lived in a time when men were expected to be men, or men were men.
Yeah.
And women were no doubt women as well, or had some kind of fucking expectation put on them.
Oh yeah. Well, I was actually talking because there was somebody on Reddit today, right? He linked something. Leonardo, some feminist wrote an article. Leonardo DiCaprio only dates women who are 20 to 25 years of age, and of course, she's a feminist, and she's outraged by this, and and it's because he's predatory or whatever, right? And
Good on him.
I know. I'm gonna read you the comment I left on the Reddit discussion. Just the predatory angle. That's an easy cover for their actual problem with it, which is more to do with sexual market value, sexual cartels, and envy. Women have always engaged in intrasexual competition based on sexualized beauty, and sexualized beauty for women has always been partly based on youth or the appearance of it. But there used to be such a thing as growing old gracefully for women. Being a dowager or a matriarch was a position that commanded respect and deference. Marriage 2.0, women putting off marriage until well past their physical or sexual prime, coupled with the elimination of the lifelong clause, has thrown a wrench in the works. Women in their 30s and early 40s searching for commitment within their age cohort, those women now want a committed long-term relationship because they now want kids and they want them fast, are forced to confront the fact that the men they're interested in, attractive and at least as successful as they are, can get sex often without offering commitment from younger, more attractive women. These 30 to 40-ish women would have long been married in secure, mostly lifelong unions in centuries past, having been able to strike a very favorable bargain when their sexual market value was at its peak, and when men could not obtain sex in a reliable or socially permissible way without getting married. While being locked into a partnership might not be 100% chuckles and sweet nothings all the time, it does take the pressure off of women to desperately maintain some illusion of perpetual youth. It allowed them to age gracefully, to be a Judi Dench rather than a Janice Dickinson, to embrace the venerable power of the dowager rather than clinging to their sex appeal by the atoms on the tips of their 2-inch-long, garishly painted fingernails. Feminism has convinced women to completely ditch the triple goddess archetype of femininity, maiden, mother, and crone, an archetype that served women quite well through the stages of their lives in the past. Not all women, mind you, but most. The maiden is now the slut. The mother is now the desperately trying to be a maiden because she wasted her youth. And the crone is the resentful hag who hates reality, writes articles for Slate, and ends up leaving everything to her cats. And the kicker is they did it to themselves. They thought that changing the sexual marketplace such that women could behave however they wanted would have no impact on their ability to secure quality mates or obtain long-term commitment. They thought that flooding the market with sex would not affect the price of it. And they stupidly believed that men could be convinced to find the qualities women find attractive in a man, socioeconomic status, equally attractive in a woman. In doing so, and in maintaining their own preference for successful men, they've priced themselves out of the market. The whole thing has blown up in feminists' faces, and they're mad. They just don't know who to be mad at or why, so they portray powerful, successful men being able to secure cut-rate sex with gorgeous young women as predatory. Whatever it is, it's men's fault, full stop.
Well, first of all, why, this is a situation that was chosen.
Yeah. Well, it was chosen by feminists. It wasn't necessarily chosen by the vast majority of women.
I actually don't think it's an issue of necessarily marketability in terms of physical appearance. Because generally, if you are a decent human being as a woman, what will happen is you will find a partner and you will keep him. And that's it. Like the marketability isn't the issue here. I don't even think it's the women's looks that are the issue here, or their age. It's the fact that probably in their 20s they had a relationship that lasted 7 years, and then something they said, "Oh well, I don't want to settle."
Yeah,
man. So they got into a succession of shorter relationships.
Yeah,
shorter and shorter relationships until they're pushing 50 or 40. and they have no one. And they don't have no one because they didn't have the opportunity. It's because they didn't keep anyone. They kept throwing men away. And now they're in a position where probably the first guy that they chose, if they'd stuck with him, would have made a very, very, very good long-term. I don't even understand a lot of this shit. Like my personal, I'm a bit, I like lists and I like checking lists off. When I found my husband and, you know, we get along enough, like we spend almost 24/7 together. Yeah. And we get along. We can manage that because we sort of like each other in a way. And when I found that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to check this box off my list. I don't have to revisit this issue. It is solved, sorted, and done. You know? And it's like, that's it. I mean,
my mom made the same thing with my dad, right? Because, I mean, my dad fell for her immediately, right? He walked in on a blind date, walked into a curling rink where he was supposed to pick my mom up to go on this blind date that he got talked into by a friend of his because he lived in Edmonton. My mom lived in Spruce Grove. His friend was dating some slut from Spruce Grove who was easy. And his friend wanted to share gas money to go out to Spruce Grove because you could actually sit in a bar and drink with women in Spruce Grove at the time, and you couldn't in Edmonton, right? So he walks into this curling rink, and there's my mom kind of looking like Audrey Hepburn, because that's what she looked like back then, sitting on the lap of a middle-aged man who she affectionately called one of her uncles, right? And flirting with a whole bunch of men twice her age. And he was just like, okay, that's the woman I'm going to marry. And my mom was kind of like, you know, I've dated men who were more exciting. I've dated men who were better dancers, right? I've dated men who thrilled me more. But what am I looking for in a husband? Somebody who's stable, somebody who's confident, somebody who is reliable, somebody who is willing to work toward a common purpose, somebody who's willing to do all of it. So even though this guy doesn't quite excite me the way some other guys do, I think this is probably the guy to bet on. Right. So, and they've been married for 52 years.
Well, it's just like, I don't know. It's just, and Space Zoo in the chat says that I'm not willing to see the harsher truths. I think the harsh truth is that these women had every opportunity to be in a long-term commitment.
Oh, they absolutely.
But they just weren't fucking up for it emotionally.
They absolutely did. And, you know, like I said, they would have made a better match when they were young.
Yeah, they would have made a better match when they were young. And it's like
when you're 40 and childless and you're searching for somebody to pair up with you and have kids, that somebody, right, has access to you and women slightly older than you and lots of women who are younger than you. And on top of that, he's maybe not that interested in hooking up or like pairing up with a woman who is like going to be saying after a month, can I go off the pill? I really want to get pregnant.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. Harsher truths time here. Karen is, can I say this? You're the age difference?
Yeah, I have a significant age difference. Yeah.
13. She's 11 years older than her partner. And
no,
she has
13
years older. And she has 3 kids when she met him. Now, harsh truth is going to meet reality. If you are a decent human being as a woman, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your baggage. If you are willing to commit to a man and treat him as a fellow human being, you will find a partner. And you will find a partner for life if you want it.
If he can trust it, that you're actually willing to do that and that you're not going to be like the last one. And that was, I mean, like, it was a year and a half before we were really settled, right? he moved out several times. He moved in and then moved out and then moved in and then moved out. And then he'd go to his apartment because he had a lease that he had to pay out because he needed some space. But then he'd want to talk to me like every second of the day over Skype or Google Chat or whatever, right? And I mean, like, so, I mean, it was a big deal, right? The age difference was a big deal. And the baggage, the kids, right? They were a big deal, especially it would have been different if they were little, right? But they weren't, right? My youngest was, I think, 8, and my oldest was 17 or something like that, 16 or 17. So it was a little bit more complicated than, I mean, I had to do a lot of convincing that that there was something different about me that he wasn't going to be able to find in the vast majority of women.
Well, but the thing is that you perceived that you had to do convincing, which in and of itself makes you different than the vast majority of women.
There you
go.
go.
Actually courted your partner. That's very different. And it's like I said, if these women had stuck with their first partner, and I guarantee they had them, they would be a lot happier right now. They wouldn't be staring down the barrel of the gun. They would have either had kids because they both wanted them, or they would just be looking forward to a really nice childless
retirement.
Retirement with their partner of many years who had grown on them. A great deal. And it was like a warm, broken in baseball mitt.
Pair of fuzzy slippers.
I mean, it's good to have a friend. You know, it's really good to have a friend, and it's really great if you have a friend you can also, have sex with.
Well, I mean,
that's good. That you're winning as far as I'm concerned.
That was one of the things that I think convinced my boyfriend, was that there were times when, because he had gone through, like when we were first together, he was going through a really difficult challenge in that he had completely, he'd gone off the deep end after his, last breakup for about a year, and he'd spent his entire semester drinking and fucking women. And not studying or even going to class. And he was in an extremely hard program. And so he was stuck learning an entire semester in the week and a half or 2 weeks before exams. And he would actually call me, and he told all of his friends, don't call, don't text, don't ping me, nothing, because I have to do this. I don't need the distraction, right? And there were other women he was seeing at the time who would just show up randomly at his fucking apartment after he told them to don't even call. He would call me and he'd say, I would really like to see you. And I'd go over there and he'd say, and I'd bring some food, right? And because I knew he wasn't feeding himself properly, I'd bring some food with me, and then he'd say, I don't even really want to have sex. Would you just like watch an episode of Futurama with me and we can just hang out, maybe cuddle. And then I'm going to go to sleep for 4 hours, and then I'm going to get up and study more. Right. And then I'm going to study from 1 o'clock in the morning until exam time at 8 a.m. And then I'm going to write my exam, and then I'm going to crash for 3 hours, and then I'm going to learn an entire semester of the next course. Right. That was, and me being just like, yeah, no, I'd love to just hang out and watch Futurama with you. And then on top of that, not calling him. He asked me not to call, didn't call. Right. And then on top of that, when I did come over, I brought him some to eat. Just some leftover shepherd's pie. But
it shows you actually gave a shit. You understood that he was a human being rather
than
he
was going through something atrocious, right? And he had this other woman that he was seeing, and she decides she's going to like barge into his apartment. She shows up at the door, demanding to be let in. And she comes in and she says, I want to talk about our relationship. Where is this going? Right? And he's telling me this, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Right? And I knew she was there because I gave him a kiss, and I'm like, you smell like her. And he was like, oh yeah, she came by. And I'm like, well, why'd she come by? And he says, oh, I don't know, she just showed up. She came in, she started like wanting to talk about where our relationship was going. And I'm like, why would she fucking do that? You told her why you didn't want that you were just like in isolation, incommunicado, do not disturb, all of that. And this is the moment that she decides she wants to come and discuss where the relationship is going. She has to know right now. What the fuck is wrong with this woman?
Bad timing.
Well, no, it was the moment that he was like, oh, I'm having trouble. She immediately was, she did what a lot of women do. And it's just like this massive, show me that you're strong. Show me that you can cope with my insecurities. Show me that, that you can accommodate my neuroses even when you're in the middle of your own crisis. Show me this. It's a test.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. It's, well, with that, it's like, I think the real harsh truth behind this all is basically if you're an older woman and you're not in a relationship, it's not because you're older. It's not because you're unattractive. It's not because of any of those superficial reasons. It's because you don't know how to care for another person. You don't know how to get out of your fucking head and actually feel the world from another person's point of view.
Well, not from a man's.
Well, not from a man's. Well, usually they can't really feel the world from another woman's point of view either. That's why they seem to speak for all women.
Yeah.
And it's like that's why. That's the harsh truth. It's because you've made yourself unlovable. It has nothing to do with your wrinkles, nothing to do with your gray hair, nothing to do with your fat ass, and nothing to do with your age.
Well, I think the problem,
those are cop-outs.
The problem with most women is that they really don't, and part of it is that men so rarely actually show, like, expose themselves in all of their, emotional vomit and all of that. Like men very rarely let people know how they're really feeling, just on that sort of level of emoting, right? And women don't live as men, so they have no idea what men's experiences actually are and how men process them and how men internalize them and internalize the expectations and all of that. So I think that women generally, they don't understand that even if male and female brains were identical, right? Even if they were absolutely identical, the difference in experience, right? Of, when a girl cries versus when a boy cries, when a girl expresses upset that she's been called bossy versus when a boy does, when he's been called a bully. All of these different experiences that they have, right, of the world and how the world reacts to them changes how they think and perceive other people, and there's just no way for a lot of women to wrap their heads around the fact that if they were put in that man's position, right, they might feel completely differently from the way that man actually feels, right? That they aren't empathizing. They're saying, how would I feel if I were in his shoes? But they're not saying, how is he feeling being in his shoes? They have no ability to understand that. They can only understand how they would feel in his shoes, right? And in particularly if they've been duped into this idea that men are privileged and women are oppressed and everything is like men are favored in all aspects of, public life and all of this other bullshit that they've been fed that everybody's been fed for decades and decades and decades, right? And I don't think men have the ability to actually go into women's brains and realize, like men are thinking, well, these women are saying this, these feminists are saying, here's what women's experience is, right? And they're not going in and saying, how would I feel, right? How would I feel if I was in that position? Because if they were in that position, they'd walk it off, right? They wouldn't complain. They wouldn't ask for help. They wouldn't lobby the government for new laws. They'd just walk it off, right? If they were in that position. They're actually the ones who are not saying, how would I feel in that position if I were in that position? They're saying, how is this woman feeling? And the problem is that they're taking feminists' word for how women are feeling.
Yeah, and until us other women who just, and I think a lot of it was just, would just shrug them off and just be like, well, whatever, for a long time.
Yeah.
Just look at this feminist and say, well, fuck, they don't speak for me. You just get on with your life, but at some point you have to stop and
you're busy.
fight back. Yeah.
I was busy raising kids. I was busy being a wife. I was busy raising 7 people. Well, supporting, like feeding and sheltering 7 people on $30,000 a year, right? Like that's what I was doing. And so yeah, I had other things to do than to pay attention to how feminists claim to be speaking for me.
But now it's getting to the point where you can't stop paying attention to this bullshit.
Oh yeah, you can't ignore it anymore, like I have the time, I have the patience now, I have
skills.
Well, and I have a better understanding of what's going on, and part of that understanding was learning at, oh my God, dog, stop fucking, oh God, you're like an old fucking man, you and your phlegm. But I essentially cut my teeth at one of the most hardcore men's websites on the internet in 2009, which was the Spearhead. I mean, like I just jumped in there into like the Shark Tank, and you either learned or you got the fuck out, right? You learned where men were coming from, how they were feeling, why they felt that way, what perspectives and experiences contributed to the reason why they feel a different way about certain things than I might have, right? All of these things. And once I spent some time there and with those men who were extremely, they were tough, but they were affectionate and pleasant and helpful and nice, and like not just with me, but with each other. They could be brutal, but it was always sort of a friendly brutality, I guess. It was like the ribbing that men, give each other. Learning that aspect of things, right? That was what got me interested in everything else. Was, oh my goodness, there's an entire group of people out there who, on the whole, have had completely different experiences than I have, who are, kind of in a crisis, and nobody's really talking about it.
Yeah. No, I would say my own, but I'm saving it.
Yeah.
Well, not just my red pill story, but just why I'm so motivated to do this.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, you discover something that's completely heretofore. It was like a new frontier for me. It was a new, and I was always very, very, I always had guy friends and I always got along with them and all of that. But this was something a little bit more hardcore. This was men letting me know more about themselves than I'd ever actually been able to know up to that point. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's time. I said that we would do this for what?
An hour, and it's been 2 hours and 18 minutes.
Yeah, it has been. So I guess what will I totally screwed my own. Well, not 2 hours and 18 minutes, about 2 hours and 12 minutes.
You've screwed the pooch, Alice.
I have screwed the pooch.
Yeah, but it's my fault.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It's our fault.
it's our fault. I should have been more, you know.
Well, I mean, that was a mighty fucking fire hose.
Yes, it was a mighty fire hose.
Massive freaking water tanker full of manure.
Yeah, we were shit cockade, as it were.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And if you enjoy this kind of thing, if you really, I'll be really honest. This is my passion. This is one of them anyway. I want to solve this problem. I want to get this change made. And I want to build the change. And if you want to see that change happen, or you want to be part of the change happening, then consider supporting us in our endeavors. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. It really, really is up to you. It's up to when you decide you want the change to start to happen. So please contribute. Please help us out. Thank you.